Today, I want to walk you through my actual retirement plan. Not a spreadsheet fantasy, not a viral headline, just real life, calm planning. I'm 53, turning 54 this year, May to be exact. I live with type 2 diabetes. I've worked since I was 17 years old, and I plan to retire at 62 years old. I don't believe in approaching retirement with a panic. I approach it with faith first and then a foundation. Because fear based planning leads to burnout. And I'm not doing that. If you watched my previous video where I stated that I have a foundation and where that foundation is, then you will know that that foundation is Jamaica. My husband, who is originally from Jamaica, has a family home there that he owns, which makes this all doable, what I'm about to share. Years back, my husband and I owned a home in Canarsie, Brooklyn, that we sold very early. Wish we would have kept it. But we are in a position where we can live out in retirement stage in Jamaica because this home is paid for, no mortgage, which means no rent, no major mortgage overhead expense, right? Which equals no housing pressure. I feel this is the number one issue that a lot of people have when they think about retirement or when they think about what they're going to do when they retire and where they're going to go and all of the nuisance that we hear all the time. One of the things that I was contemplating is why is it that we work all these years to pay off our home years later? For me, I remember I remember that conversation and how it used to be what was called the American dream, right? And when I hear that in my head again, I'm like, the American dream is to work until you can pay off your home, which is typically for most people 25 to 30 years, if not longer. So you stay working to make this one accomplishment. And because this has been taught to us, ingrained in us, we feel that there's no other option. We feel that we can't change what we've been taught. We feel that if we go out of the norm, people will look at us differently or question what we're doing or whatever they do when they think about what you're doing with your life, right? So this plan of action um, came with other decisions that had to be made to say, okay, this is where we're going to retire. This is where I've accepted I want to retire. Um, that's a foundation, and that's what we're going to talk about. See, the thing is, for me, foundation is important. So you have a structure, you have your belief system, you have your pathway. But because you have a foundation, it doesn't mean that while you navigate with this foundation, you can't, what I call, take trips here and there. So my thought process is Okay, Jackie. Wow, you're going to retire in less than 10 years. I remember looking at my Social Security statement, probably, I want to say it was around 2010, 2011, that I last looked at it, because every year I used to look at it. I used to think it was the coolest thing. I'm like, oh, wow, because I've been working for a long time. Honestly, I've been working since I was 14 years old. But when you talk about working on the books, it was 17. So I've been working all my teenage life, right? So you're seeing, wow, these numbers look great, you know? At that young age, while I was working, that's how I looked at the statement. I'm like, okay, if, you know, God see fits to allow me to see 62, see retirement, I have something to look forward to. I actually look forward to reading my statements more than I look forward to looking at my 401k. And that's another topic. But I would say the reason for that is because I really felt that Social Security is more secure than my 401k. And now we fast forward it to 2025, and we've all have heard stories, and you know so for me, I've always felt that Social Security was a foundation based income that I can count on. The difference with my mindset and most of and other people's mindset is that I'm not looking at the number per se. So if you make a certain amount of income, you're like, okay, this is not going to cover my lifestyle. I don't look at Social Security as covering my entire lifestyle. I look at Social Security as part of security, right? It's a foundation base, right? So I look at it as a foundation base, and not the end all be all, if that makes sense. Give you another example. So if you're used to bringing home $200,000 a year, right? Your Social Security may not look like something you want to live off of because of your expenses, your lifestyle and all that. I get it, right? But the reality is, right? What are your choices? What do you want to do? And I think that's what separates me from a lot of people, right? I do have a certain lifestyle that I like to live now, right? And it definitely costs more than what my Social Security benefits is stating. However, right? I truly believe as you get older, you learn to make adjustments to fit the lifestyle where you're not having a headache, where you're not trying to figure out what they used to say, robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're not doing that during retirement. We're not going into retirement thinking, okay, I need to pick up a second job. Because if I have to pick up a second job in my retirement, is because it's a choice, right? And a lot of people may not agree with me with that and say because of, inflation and whatever, cost of living. Yeah, they all play in that. But again, you still have a choice, right? There's a big world out there. So, hence is why I was in a position to say, okay, I can make Jamaica my foundation. Does it mean I have to stay in foundation? Does it mean that I have to live in Jamaica 365 days of the year? No, it does not. And that, my friend, is the privilege of being a U.S. citizen, right? Holding a Jamaican residence, or simply just being a U.S. citizen. And I'm saying that because there's a lot of people who do not take advantage of their citizenship, the beauty of this citizenship, all that it entails, right? So, in my previous video, we talked about living off your Social Security and knowing that you can take your Social Security with you. Well, I'm taking my Social Security with me, God willing, to Jamaica, right? I've already experienced living in Jamaica. I take long sabbaticals here. I've been doing that since 2012, right? So I'm very familiar with Jamaica, the layout, the cost of living, everything about Jamaica, right? So the idea of having a foundation is where you need to start. So let's backtrack to when I was looking at my statements, my Social Security statements. And the last time I said, as I read my Social Security statements, it was at $1,400. Okay. I haven't looked at it since then. One reason, because I can't get into it, so I have to figure all that out, right? But you have access, guys, to your Social Security statements in real time, okay? Not an estimate, real time. So that's why I'm staying with the $1,400 a month, because that was my last true estimate at the time that I looked at it, somewhere between 2010 and 2012, right? And I've been working ever since then. I'm still working. I would say um, during this whole process, I probably was on unemployment for 1 year. Well, going on 2 years in between, but it was never a full year, right? Just to throw that caveat in there. So I'm looking at it as okay, my husband's home is paid for here, right? So we have no mortgage. We have utility bills. We have, it's called JPS here, which is the electric bill. Then you have your water company here, right? And pretty much JPS is the highest bill because we have AC, right? And that's what will raise our bill more. But in reality, we're probably looking at, depending on the weather, we will probably have a bill anywhere from 150 to 250, right? And that's 150 American dollars to 250 American dollars. Okay. That I would say would be the biggest bill we have when we talk about overhead expense, right? Then you have your water bill, right? My husband's car is paid for. It's not a fancy car. It is not a brand name car. Right now, I can't think of the name of it, but it gets us to point A to point B. We've driven it to Kingston. We've driven it to Ochi. We've driven it to Negril, right? It gets us where we need to go. Hence is why my husband is like, no car payment, even though I really was trying to get a car payment to get a upgraded car. So if we get an upgraded car, it's because we're paying for it out of our pocket. We're not doing payments. Okay. Now, understand another piece that I feel is important. My husband is 10 years older than me, right? So there, my friend, he's already in his 60s, right? So the way he thinks and the way I still think is a little different because I'm like, okay, I want a nice car here in Jamaica. Well, we can't get that because it's going to go over our budget. It doesn't make any sense, right? We're going to point A to point B. And if we really want a nice car when we're traveling, we rent a car now. And I had to get to that mindset. And I'm so glad I followed his lead on that because I was laid off. And that affected a lot of our income, right? So it's not always about what you want right now. It's also about what makes sense in the long run, right? Okay, so now I'm looking at, okay, we have this income, Jackie, of $1,400, right? My income of $1,400, now I can do so much. I can travel. I can go travel to see my son and my daughter-in-law and my grandbabies who actually left the States and live in Thailand. Then I thought about it. I'm like, I have the capability of doing an extended stay in Thailand, which is one of my dreams to do for a whole year. And I'm able to do that because I don't have overhead expense that I have to worry about. My husband worries about all that, right? It's a pros and cons, guys. So, how do I allow this to work for me in this situation? And that's what we're going to talk about. So, as I stated before, when people talk about retirement stress, they're really talking about housing. Once your housing is settled and handled, everything else becomes secondary and becomes quieter. So, as I stated, when I checked my Social Security statement back some years back, it was at 1400. That is the number that I am keeping in my head, even though I know I will get more, right? I am using that number because to me it makes sense. It's a comfortable number, it's a realistic number, right? So that is the number that I keep, and that is the number that I use when I am planning my retirement. I'm not looking and waiting for Social Security to make me rich. I just needed to give me a baseline. Because when you have a baseline, things become much clearer and begin to make more sense. And for my lifestyle and for what I'm looking to do and what I want to do, it makes sense and it's doable. So I'm planning for sufficiency. Okay. I'm not chasing the ultimate big number I can get from Social Security. I'm definitely not chasing perfection because there is no such thing in this life as perfection. And that is my personal opinion, right? The only thing is perfect is God. And so everything else, we make it work. God gives us the strength to make it work. So at 62, what would I be doing? I am not grinding. I am not hustling. I am not doing anything extra I feel I need to do. I've done that and I'm doing that now while I'm working. I've did all of my grinding while I was in corporate America. 2018 I left corporate. Do I still grind? Yes, because working for yourself is not something you could just sit back and it happen, right? So you still grind. You just grind differently and you grind on your time. I'm definitely not looking to prove anything to anybody. I'm not looking to travel to every continent or travel to every space on the globe. I do know where I want to go and what I want to do. And ultimately, this plan of action that God willing I can make happen in less than 10 years has all to do with my health. It supports my health as a type 2 diabetic. Low stress, more time to do my fun walks, my steps, take even more time to make better meal choices. Not that I'm not doing it now, but there's a difference when you could just wake up and be like, what do I want to make today? What do I want to cook? What do I want to grow in my garden type of thing? All of this matters as a type 2 diabetic. And a lot of people do not take in consideration that work is one of the highest stress to the body. Experience that I've seen with family and friends and coworkers. See, retirement is not about stopping life. It's not about just sitting in my rocking chair or sitting on a couch. I mean, if that's what you want to do, so be it. It's so much more than that. It's simply about protecting my peace and intentionally planning how I want each day to go without having to ask for permission. So for me, when you create a solid foundation, I feel that is like the number one resolution to making decisions, right? Housing, foundation, knowing what your baseline is, knowing where your foundation will be, meaning where you're going to lay your head. Those two are like the top of the line answers to your decision making, right? Um, Now, where that house is going to be, I think that's a decision that comes with what type of lifestyle do you want, right? Um, I'm originally from Long Island, New York. Our first house we had was in Brooklyn, in Canarsie on Avenue L. We've lived in New Jersey for years, so we went back and forth from New Jersey, New York, and end up staying in New Jersey when it was time for the kids. We had two kids go to school. We didn't want them to be in the New York public schools, so we end up moving to New Jersey. So we've had experience on places that we wanted to live, and now um, I've experienced living in Charlotte, North Carolina, where majority of my immediate family is at. Um, I've lived in Florida for a couple of years, which is one of my favorite places now, um, where I go between Florida and Jamaica, where other family was living and friends. I would have meetups with my friends, right? Um, and I started living in Florida when had I had become an empty nester. So I have two children. They're 2.5 years apart. My son, oh my God, what are their ages? He's 30. He'll be 31 this year. Um, Matter of fact, he'll be 32 this year. My daughter will be 30 or 31 this year. I just know I got two kids, boy and a girl, who are young adults, and I have two grandkids, right? So I've always centered my living around where they were, or I would go visit them while I would still take my sabbaticals here in Jamaica. So I've had enough experience in the States, and now I want to experience living in other cultures in other countries. And my son started early. He decided he want to go live in Thailand, which is where he's at now. And I'm looking to take my first trip there before retirement. So the plan of action is, okay, do 60 to 90 days in Thailand, okay? In Bangkok, whichever, you know, I forget the location he's at. That's my plan of action to go see, okay, how would it be living here for a year? Because when I retire, that is the plan of action to go live in Thailand for a whole year. And I can do that with $1,400 a month, right? And I'm gonna say that for another video as to the cost of living and all that stuff that you would have to need. But my point is, I've done all of the math and figured it out and the cost of living in those areas. And for a year, I can go live in Thailand comfortable. Now, what a lot of people don't know is you can also still earn money while you're collecting. And that's for another video that I'm doing, but I would say this. Hence is why 1400 is not a number that I'm stuck with, because I know I still have the options to make a few more dollars as long as I am not, going over the what is it about the amount that is allotted while you collect. So when you understand the full picture, when you understand the plan of action that you have, it makes, at least for me, looking at retirement in a better light, a calm light, very understanding. And of course, as the time comes, you still have to make adjustments, you still have to review everything. But there's a level of peace that I'm at right now, knowing what my future I have a chance to look like, if that makes sense. So if you're watching this and you're thinking retirement feels scary, don't let it be. It doesn't have to be. Remember, you do not need perfection. You just need a foundation. I'll see you in the next video.